Hello and welcome to another exciting episode of the Weekly Shonen Jump Breakdown for the week of October the 10th. My name is Trey. Both cats are in frame today, and I have Kylo back there blocking glare, so that might be a little bit better this week. Hopefully, we shall see. We start this week off with Lycopene, the Tomatoy Poodle. Tomatoy? I'm going to struggle with this every week, aren't I? The Tomatoy Poodle? Sure. Whatever. So this is a really weird thing. I like it. I enjoyed it. I had a good time with it. But it's a gag manga. It absolutely is. And the gags are very referential in nature. And it's references to things I don't know, which makes it a little bit more interesting sometimes. But you have the main character's name is Mei. She's very close to meme, unless it's pronounced Mimi, but I doubt that, based on the way it's spelled. Also, Lycopene is very weird. He's a tomato poodle. Tomato toy poodle. That's where the name comes from, clearly, though I struggle every time saying it for some reason. But he's carrying around this stack of food that he claims is pancakes, but it just looks like a big cake. Like, there's no lines in the middle to separate the different pancakes. It just looks like one giant pancake. And they call it pancakes. And then there's the whole, like, he stabbed himself in the hindquarters a lot. We'll go with that. And that joke wore on me pretty quickly, to be honest. It was funny the first couple times. But after that, I saw what they were doing, and it was okay. There are some pretty good gags, though. And since it is a gag manga, that's pretty much what you're going to focus on. The gag about Lycopene's blood sugar is pretty good. I liked that. And then all the stuff that happened with his girlfriend, where she was not happy at all with what Mei suggested. And then at the end, when she goes home and, you have that moment where it looks like you'll never get to see each other again, and then he just immediately messages her online, and his account's been hacked. Yeah, that was pretty good. I'm gonna enjoy gags and not enjoy gags, most likely, as we go. So, if you enjoyed the gags, like all of them, in this chapter, please let me know in the comments below. Or if you enjoyed specific gags and didn't enjoy others, please let me know. But next up, we have One Piece 881, Wave Room. This was a great chapter, by the way. We get the cover page with Sai marrying Baby 5. We get to see Big Mom on the candy sludge that explains how she was able to ride that wave. I figured that was going to be the case. I still don't understand how her devil fruit power allows her to interact with waves and water and things like that, but maybe she can just send a soul and doesn't have to physically touch the thing. And if that's the case, then that explains it. But I really liked having that little moment there just to be like, hey, look, it's okay. She's not riding on this wave. She's riding on the sludge that's riding on the wave. Whether that works or not, according to the rules that we know with devil fruits, I don't know. But it's better than nothing. Past that, of course, we have the scene of everyone panicking. We have the scene of just Jinbei being a boss and saying, we're going through the green room. We're doing it. And the green room itself is really cool. And when they get in there, you have that moment where Chopper's just like, is this what the afterlife looks like? And it's just, it's a really good first half of the chapter. And if that had been all we got, I still probably would have been pretty happy if that had just been extended out. But that's not all we got. We get this scene where immediately Big Mom's kids are just like, oh, Straw Hats are dead again. They need to stop writing them off so quickly. And Luffy runs away from Katakuri and the others to try and talk to Nami, because he's still got the shard of the mirror in his hand. And Katakuri obviously gets suspicious and comes after him. But Luffy then hides the mirror inside his mouth so that Katakuri can't see it. And you just have this moment where Luffy is fighting so hard to protect the crew. And then he finally gets a moment to be able to tell him he'll catch up. Don't worry about it. Everything's going to be fine. And he has to do the big smile. He has to do the Corazon smile. He has to do the Sol smile. He has to do that big smile that says it's going to be okay. That we almost always know is a lie, where it's super not going to be okay. But he does that so that when he says it, the crew thinks everything's fine. And even Jinbei is just like, phew. And it's like, man, Luffy's not okay. This is a bad situation. Like, I've never once considered Luffy dying before the story's over. Luffy could die here. I don't think it'll happen. I don't think Luffy will die before the story's over. But it could. And then you just have this moment where it's probably my favorite moment of the whole chapter, honestly, where Katakuri is like, the next thing you're going to say, JoJo style, and he just tells him, hey, like, he looks into the future, he sees what Luffy's going to say, and Luffy says it anyway. There's no JoJo moment of just, how did you know I was going to... It's just Luffy's like, no, I'm not dying here. And then, of course, we do get the unfortunate news that One Piece is on break next week. That's kind of a shame. But, what can you do? We get good chapters. Oda needs a break. He needs to take his time. We don't want any kind of situations here like we have with Hunter x Hunter. Just take your time, Oda. Give us a week off. We'll be alright. We've still got My Hero Academia and Dr. Stone and a lot of other really good stuff. We'll be okay. Come back and give me more One Piece. Thank you. Next up, we have Dr. Stone 30, Death Green. Man, this is also a really good... There were a lot of really good chapters this week. I really enjoyed a lot of the stuff that we had this week in Jump. Senku gives Genro his spear. Genro's on bodyguard duty. And at first, I was like, what are they talking about with his spear turning? Silver does... And then I was like, oh, sulfide. Of course! It makes perfect sense. And it just, again... It's a thing that if you don't know about it, you learn about it. But if you do know about it already, you're like, I knew Senku'd do that. And of course, I didn't know he'd do that. It took me until I figured out the spear would turn black. But hey, I got there. That's what's important. And you can with this kind of storytelling. I really appreciate it when Dr. Stone does stuff like this. I also really appreciated what they did with the sulfide itself, with the sulfuric gas and the acid that comes with it, where Genro sees it as this beautiful angel. Because he's already breathed in just a little bit of it, and it's making him hallucinate a little bit. And there's this really powerful moment where he goes to go in, and the spear starts to turn black, and Kohaku pulls him back. And if this was a regular slice of life shonen or gag or anything like that, this would be the moment where he'd be like, oh no, my spear! But instead, he's horrified. He's scarred for life, probably. Because this beautiful angel begins to melt in front of him as he gets to see what this really is. And his mind starts working through the hallucination. It's really good storytelling to be able to show you that, hey, this is why people make really dumb mistakes sometimes when chemical warfare is involved, is because it messes with their heads. It's like Genro wouldn't have just jumped into that sulfuric acid on his own, but because it was starting to get to him, he was going to walk right in. And the scene of that angel just melting in front of him to become a skeleton, man, that's really powerful. You also have this really, really emotional scene at the end where Kohaku is like, no, I'm gonna go. I'll do whatever it takes to save Rurouni. And then Senku's like, no, we'll make gas masks. He goes, but what if the gas masks don't work? And so he decides Chrome's not going on this next one. He's gonna tell Chrome everything he knows. And so I don't know if we're going to skip straight to Senku trying out the gas mask, or if we're going to have a full chapter dedicated to Chrome, like learning everything. I feel like we'll just probably skip. But this is big stuff, because it means now Senku couldn't really die before, because you needed him around to be the smart guy. And I don't want him to die still, don't get me wrong. I like Senku a whole lot, and I want him to stick around. But if Senku passes on all his knowledge to Chrome, he can die. And conversely, it also means Chrome can die. And so this is a really good storytelling beat, not just from Senku and Chrome's characters, but also for the story overall. Because now either one of them could kick in at any time, and the story could still continue. It would obviously be really sad, and it would be really emotional, and would mean a lot to whichever one survived. But still, it could happen now. So this was a really good chapter. I especially really liked that one-off scene of the bird calling Genro a coward, and then we get to see those same birds later when they fly over the sulfuric acid and breathe in a whole bunch of that gas and go straight into the acid. And just little touches like that I really appreciate, where callbacks come in the same chapter where it's not too far back. But really, really good chapter. Really good chapter. Next up we have We Never Learned 34. As all of you know, I spent a lot of time talking about We Never Learn. I'm going to try and do better about that and condense my thoughts a little bit more. But this was a really good chapter. I really liked this chapter. We start off with that great Halloween cover, though there's no Asumi or Kurisu on the cover, or no Sekijo. It's just the main three. Regardless, really good cover. And the girls, of course, go crazy when they see Yuiga dressed up and sewing. And I thought their different reactions were really good. Where Takamoto is like, oh, he's so cute. And then you had, like, Furuhashi being like, he can sew. He's going to make somebody a really good bride. The actual chapter itself, though, is a Kurisu chapter and an Asumi chapter. Which means that as these are my two current best girls, I'm set. This is a good chapter for me. But the whole premise is that Kurisu was out with other teachers her age, and they wanted to keep partying, and she didn't want to. And so on her way home, she sees Yuiga going into a maid cafe, and she's like, oh no, what? This is a red light district. What are you doing here? And it leads to a whole bunch of fun situations. There's a really good moment where Asumi grabs him by one arm and is like, hey, you can leave. He's just studying. Everything's fine. And then Kurisu grabs him by the other arm, and she's like, no, we gotta go. And Asumi asks her if she's jealous, and Kurisu blushes a little bit. She's like, no, of course I'm not. This leads to Kurisu falling and knocking over another waitress, one of the other maids, who gets hurt, and then Kurisu has to take her place. It leads to a really good scene where she has to practice her mannerisms at being a maid to be able to work here, to fulfill that shift that she ruined. And she tries to tell Yuiga, as he's her practice student, to welcome him home and call him darling, to be able to see if she can get that down, which is the greeting that they give people when they come into the maid cafe. And she blushes real, just full blush. I was gonna say real bad, but it's not a bad thing. And Yuiga is he's stunned. His glasses just break in comedic fashion. It was a really good moment. I loved the idea that anytime you take a character that's a refined or more elegant character and put them in a less elegant situation, and instead of getting angry, they try to adapt to that situation, it's a really good character beat for them. We saw that already with Asumi teaching the other girls last week. It gave us a really good lead into this feeling. And being able to have it here with Kurisu is just more support to that idea that these are actual characters and not just girls who follow the main character around. You also have a really, really good moment where Asumi talks to Yuiga about how Kurisu being against her dream of going to med school gave her more desire to do it, to prove her wrong. And, Yuiga's like, oh, I never considered that. And maybe in a way, Yuiga, by trying to convince Kurisu to support the girls, is hurting them because they don't have that drive that Asumi clearly has, that led to some of these fun situations in this chapter. You also have the final moment where, they give Kurisu something to drink because they're like, oh, we really appreciate your help. And because she's an adult, they give her something alcoholic. She's already drunk quite a bit tonight, I assume, at this other party. We don't know that, but I assume. And so when she takes a drink, she's out. She's down. And Yuiga puts her on his back and goes to carry her home. And there's been a couple moments throughout the chapter where she's thought about how responsible he is and, how everybody seems to like him. And now she basically just tells him that because she's drunk. And she pats him on the head and tells him exactly what she thinks. And it's kind of getting to him a little bit. He's getting a little worked up. And then she starts telling him how proud she is that he can walk and that he can feed himself. Because apparently when she's drunk, she just tells people how great they are. And that was a really funny little moment to cap off how great this chapter was. So yeah, really, really good chapter. Really enjoyed it. Next up we have Blue Exorcist 94, Beyond the Snow Part 3. So the world is beginning to see demons, as we've already seen in the last couple chapters, and it's spiraling out of control. But social media's blowing up as it would. There are people just upset everywhere, and the government doesn't know what to do. They're trying to backpedal, trying to figure out what they can say to be able to cover this up. And Faust's just like, hey, no, we gotta tell everybody. We gotta let them know. Rin is struggling with all he's being told about his brother, with the gunpoint stuff and the stuff with Moriyama. And so finally he just runs off to go find him. And I love the panel where he's running off because he looks angry and worried at the same time. And that's such a difficult emotion to be able to convey in panel. It's such a difficult emotion to be able to convey in panel. And you see it right there. It's very clear. He has to go find him. He has to get this sorted out. Because Yukio doesn't think he can rely on him. And that's not okay to Rin. They're brothers. So, as he does this, though, Yukio is on the prowl. And Shima calls Faust while the Prime Minister is giving a speech and is like, hey, he took me down. He's coming. Get ready. And within seconds, basically, Faust hangs up the phone and behind him is Yukio in a chilling panel. That panel looks great. Yukio demands his answers and Faust is like, I don't have time right now. I don't have time. And so Faust steps up to speak and Yukio shoots him in the head. Yukio has gone off his rocker. He's completely lost it. He wants to know why things are the way they are, and nobody's telling him. And so he'll get his answers his own way. It also helps that he's been a little bit corrupted after he tried to kill himself. But still, he's losing it. And Faust, obviously being a demon, should be able to come back from this no problem, but he's weaker than he thought, and it's because he's been holding the barrier the whole time, and the barrier's been getting weaker, and it's been using his own power. So he decides he has to let the barrier fall or he's going to die. So he lets the barrier down. And oh man, does he let the barrier down. The barrier comes down, and you see fantasy creatures and demons from every culture just rushing forward. I saw a Hydra, I saw Gashadokuro, I saw the giant centipede demon, I can't remember his name right now. Is it Jorogumo? I saw the giant spiders demons, Tsuchigumo. I saw some other smaller dragons. There was a wyvern. There was a phoenix. There was a person with a spear. There's just everything is coming. And it's not going to be good in the next couple chapters. There's going to be a big fight on their hands. I love that there is still this big overarching plot going on, but that while that's happening, we're still focusing on the minor plot of Rin and Yukio. Because those two have never really been okay. Even at the beginning, there was kind of a wedge there that was kind of understated and not really talked about. And I love that now it's come to the forefront, and Rin is the one. Not Yukio, Rin is the one. Being like, look, no, we gotta stop this. I'm coming. We're gonna do this. I'm gonna sort this out, and you're gonna listen to me, whether you want to or not. And so, I'm looking forward to that in the next couple chapters. I'm looking forward to Rin probably having to fight his way through some demons, but eventually getting to Yukio and them sorting this out. And it may lead to a big fight, but maybe they'll just team up. Who knows? We'll see. There are going to be some big fights coming, though, because you don't put a Gashadokuro in your panel, the giant skeleton demon, and not have it fight somebody. Like, that would be a huge bummer. That's the opposite of a Chekhov's gun. That's you just burst a giant skeleton onto the scene, and you're not going to have somebody fight it? No. Somebody better fight that Gashadokuro, or I'm going to be very upset. So, next up we have Food Wars 234. You're through! This whole chapter is about Aizen and his plan that was set up last chapter, where he's going to use artichokes to make Takumi's pizza too sweet for him to be able, for the judges, because the artichokes are going to enhance the sweetness and the pizza's going to taste like mush. And it's like, okay, I get it. I see what's going on here. This whole chapter was to show that Aizen's a bad guy. Then he's a good chef, but he's a bad person. And there are calls to, hey, he should be disqualified, but he hasn't broken any rules. So there's nothing wrong with it. He got his dish done first. It feels really lame that this whole chapter focuses on that, but we got some really good Aizen faces, and we have a really determined looking Takumi. Takumi, of course, was getting baited, even though he was acting like he wasn't. Saito could see that. And it's like, yeah, you fell into his trap. I really feel like next chapter, though, Takumi's going to have put something in there that is going to overcome the artichokes. And that if that happens, that makes this entire chapter basically null and void. Like, this chapter, I know that a chapter doesn't translate to one episode of the anime normally in an anime. This chapter better not be a whole episode of an anime. Like, this chapter is like 8 minutes of an episode. This whole chapter is basically Aizen going back to get his artichokes while thinking about how clever he is, cooking while talking about how clever he is, putting Takumi down, telling Takumi that Soma's a better cook than he is, and then revealing his grand scheme and gloating about it. And it's like, okay, you have to have that chapter. It's not a great chapter, though. I don't know. We'll see how it turns out. It could turn out to be really good. But I'm expecting next chapter to just be, hey, this whole chapter was invalid. So, we'll see. Black Clover 128, the one who wins till the end. So the Wizard King puts a stop to the fight for a second to set up the new match, and this is great. Because now it moves from being a petty squabble to being an official match, which means the other fighters are also involved. Which means, yes, it is still a one-on-one, but it doesn't stop the tournament. So how this would normally work in a regular tournament arc is one of two things would happen. Either the two characters would have their fight, and the fight would go down, and one of them would be really badly injured, and wouldn't be able to fight the next time, and their team would be disqualified, and that would count as the advancement for the main character's team. Or they would stop their fight and go, well, wait till I fight you in the finals. And then they would come back and have their big rival moment. For the Wizard King to just go, hey, these guys were going to fight anyway. Let's just go ahead and do the match now. Perfect sense. Makes perfect sense. I actually expected it to be the first one, where after Asta beats Langris, Langris's team just has to give up because they don't have Langris anymore. And to see this actually become a turn of events, it's great, it's stupid, and I love it. And Zerx loves it too. He's like, yeah, let's do it now. Well, he's already hurt. Come on. Langris goes for the crystal, of course, and Asta blocks him. And Langris is going all out. He doesn't want help from his other teammates. And Asta's doing his best to try and defend the crystal, but there's just too many. He's not able to block them all. And Mimosa is trying to heal him as he gets hit, but he's getting hit too much, and she's not going to be able to keep it up. We also get to see a couple of really cool things. The Wizard King set all of this tournament up to be able to find the traitor, which we talked about when the tournament first became a thing. We mentioned that might be what was going on, but I really love that the Wizard King is just like, yeah, no, somebody is betraying us, and they might not be doing it on purpose. It might be an unconscious traitor. And if that's the case, we gotta stop him. We gotta figure out what's going on. And so the tournament is obviously the best way to do that, because people get a little worked up when they're fighting back-to-back fights like this. We also get to be reminded why Asta cares so much about Finral. And it's that Finral was one of the first people to accept him. To accept him, to respect him, and to believe in his dream of becoming the Wizard King, even though he didn't have any magic. And because that's not a scene, it's not a flashback to something we'd never seen before, it's a scene we've seen before. It was quite a few chapters ago. 70 chapters ago, maybe? No. It's after the fight with Mars, right? The first fight with Mars, not when Mars shows back up later and then turns good. But because of that, it's just this moment where we go, man, Finral really did believe in him all that time ago, didn't he? And it leads us to go, yeah, Asta! Beat Langris up! Come on! And so, I'm really excited to see next chapter. I feel like this whole thing is going to come down to Asta finally gets Langris almost beaten, and then Zerx has already taken out the enemy crystal. Using traps, he's just like led the enemies into him to blow up their crystal. I don't know, we'll see. But this is a good chapter. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it quite a bit. So next up we have Robot Laserbeam 28 Reunion. You get this real grasp of the difference between amateur and pro courses in this chapter, from the emphasis that's put on the way the grass is cut to how wide the courses are and how slanted the greens are and how much faster the greens can be. It really sets apart how hard the pros have to fight to be able to win. And I didn't realize, this chapter talks about, I didn't realize that if the pros lose in a tournament, they don't get paid. It's like, okay, wow, that's big for them. It's real big. And to see Yozan as an amateur be fighting so hard to try and go pro, it was a thing where I was like, okay, so Yozan must have a dream. Suzaku basically says in this chapter, no, he must go pro. It's the only option for him. He loves to golf that much, he has to go pro. It's not that he's choosing, he has to. And I wonder if the same thing for Suzaku. Or if he's choosing to go pro. We know, of course, that Robo is another one of those that must go pro. He loves playing golf. He's going to go pro. There's no ands, ifs, or buts about it. You see this guy Shosato make a mistake. And it really sets the stage for when a pro makes a mistake, it hurts. And Shosato is trying to beat Yozan as well. And I always love it when you get to see the competitor that's not the main character facing the rival, because it's like, hey, this guy has a dream too. This guy wants to be a pro too. This guy wants to be able to play really well. This guy wants to win this tournament. And he makes a mistake, and you get to see him just being like... It's like, yeah, that's how people are. There's millions of people in this world. Billions, I guess. There's a lot of people in this world. And they all have dreams and hopes and aspirations. And so when you spend just a little bit of time to focus on a side character like that, and emphasize how they feel, it makes it feel more real. Makes it feel more believable. You also have Yozan making a mistake later on. And then Robo talking about it and how even though he's not sure if he wants to go pro or not, he wants to beat Yozan. He wants to challenge him and beat him. And almost like Yozan's a new type, as soon as Robo says that, he gets that and turns and just locks eyes with Robo. And once it's locked, it's done. He can't not win now. So he goes to get his 3-wood because he has a reason to win even if it kills him. And that is his rival. Solid chapter. I really enjoyed it. Next up we have My Hero Academia 155, Saviors, the Saved, and a Hero's Place. Oh man, this is a good chapter. So we start out with Kurono having Aizawa and talking about how Chisaki wants his quirk. And that is a really interesting thing to me still. Because does he drain people of their quirks? Is his plan to kill Aizawa and fuse with him as well so that he can take his eyes? I don't know. It's clear already that he can do multiple things with his own quirk. Is that a thing he can do? I assume. We have Deku trying to fight Overhaul, who is just healing himself constantly. Deku throws out a Manchester Smash. He's trying so hard. But Overhaul dodges it. He's like, hey, compared to the other two, you may be fast, but I can see through your movements right away. And it just shows yet again that Deku doesn't have the experience that Mirio and Night Eye have. He doesn't have the experience that anybody else really has. These rookies are still rookies, and no matter how powerful his quirk is, without experience, he's not going to be able to pin down Overhaul. We get to see this really powerful scene of Mirio trying to keep Eri away. He's trying to walk her down the hallway while he's thinking about Night Eye being speared behind him, and he's just desperately trying to get her away, and then his indomitable will fails. He's lost too much blood. He can't keep going. And he goes to collapse. And then Overhaul calls out to Eri. And is like, hey, you don't want any more blood on your hands, do you? This guy's gonna die. And Eri comes running back, and Overhaul is like, hey, this guy's gonna lose. You don't think he's gonna win, do you? And she's like, I don't. And then she offers herself up. She says she'll come back to him if he'll just spare everybody. If he'll just heal everybody back so they don't die. And you just have this scene where Deku remembers Night Eye saying that Mirio needed one for all. And you can't help but think that if Deku's thinking that if Mirio had one for all, this would have been different. We know, of course, that Mirio couldn't take one for all because he's got a quirk. But if he could have, with his experience, would he have been able to beat Overhaul? We get the shot of Night Eye thinking about how he's already seen the future. He knows they're going to lose. There's nothing Deku can do. But Deku refuses again and claims that no one's dying today. Eri's getting saved. And right as he does that, and Overhaul looks like he's about to start laughing, the roof caves in, reinforcements arrive in the form of Tsuyu, Urakura, and Ryuku. Things are about to get really good or really bad for the main characters. Because I don't know that Ryuku's quirk translates really well to fighting him. And You have Suyu's tongue. Maybe Suyu could get Eri away, and Overhaul would eventually decide he has to go chase her. But Ryuko is basically melee, and Urakura has to be able to touch things to be able to affect them with gravity. She's not fast like Deku. This could turn out really bad. As much as they needed reinforcements, these aren't really the people they needed. And who knows? Maybe things could turn out pretty well. But this is going to be a tough one for sure. And Overhaul is just so powerful. But in this world, experience, skill, and a powerful quirk make you an almost unbeatable enemy. There's a reason why people like All Might are the top heroes. There's this really good scene where Deku, he doesn't hit with that Manchester Smash, and Overhaul hits him, and Deku's able to block most of the damage, but he takes a spear to the arm. And all I could think about is if this was All Might, he would have attacked through that. Deku doesn't have that experience. Deku doesn't have that strength with One for All. Deku's only at 20%. He's not at the 100%. But in this world, somebody like All Might is the only one who can just break down into a fistfight with characters like this. Because we've seen Night Eye, who's extremely skilled, not be able to do it. We've seen Mirio, who's extremely skilled, not be able to do it. And even if Mirio had kept his quirk, would it have been enough to be able to beat Overhaul if he'd fused with his lackeys? And then we have Deku with One for All, but because he doesn't have the experience and he doesn't have the ability to full cowl 100%, can he do it? It doesn't look like it. And I love that is the differentiator. It is still about the power level, but it's also still about the experience and the skill. So, really good chapter. Really good chapter. Next up is the Promised Neverland 58 Decision. We see the nicknames the Nameless Man gives the kids, and that's pretty cool. The older kids talk a little bit about the trip and what's going on, and how the Nameless Man might be planning on killing them or subjecting them to terrible horrors out there, which is what we talked about last week. They also talk about how they have to do this. Emma basically just bombards this guy with questions, knowing that he's probably not going to answer any of them, though she does still seem a little frustrated when he doesn't. And he tells them that they have a good family here, and that's why he hates them so much. He then drops a bomb by saying things that Emma has said before, though not to him. Like how they have to get everybody out of here, and nobody's useless, and everybody's going to survive together. And it really hammers home the point that that's what happened with his group. That they said the same things, and now he's the only one that's left. You also get to see that great shot of a boy in the woods again with a knife, and people lying on the ground around him, and now we can see clearly, because the shot's closer, this is not Ray at all. This is the Nameless Man. And it's just a thought of like one decision could ruin everything, and it makes me think, what happened? I want to know this story. And we'll learn it, I'm sure, but I want to know. He tells Emma to follow him and to get Ray, and then moves the piano out of the way and reveals a room full of weapons. Shotguns, rifles, axes, bazookas. Like, what? I mean, I get that William Minerva was making a place where everybody could be safe there, underground in that shelter, but that's crazy. I mean, they're going to be kitted out. They don't know how to use rifles, I don't think, but they're going to be kitted out. So, hey, this next part of the journey is going to be real dangerous, and I'm real excited. At the same time, I'm also very concerned about the kids that remain, because since they don't know anything about the poachers yet, what's going to happen there? Are the poachers demons like Sanju and Mujika that travel on their own, and they do eat humans? Because although Sanju and Mujika told the kids they don't eat humans anymore, Sanju made it real clear that he wanted to hunt humans again. And I wonder if it's just that they are poachers. And I can't help but wonder if maybe it was Sanju and Mujika that ate the other kids that were with the Nameless Man. I doubt it, because surely there would have been some reference to that already. It's possible, but I doubt it. Well, this was a really good setup chapter. The weapons being found, the Nameless Man talking about how dangerous things are going to be soon. I'm looking forward to this trip, honestly. I want to see where they go and what kind of crazy stuff they wind up finding on the way. Finally, for this week, we have Rurouni Kenshin, the Hokkaido Arc 2, Melee at Mount Hakodate. So, you get this really cool shot of somebody climbing the cliff face, and everybody reports it, of course, and then 3 policemen are killed when they go to check it out, and then 10 policemen are killed later on when they go to check it out. And this leads to a big police wave going up the hill, and almost immediately they notice Saito's gone. Where'd he go? And so they're like, sword's gonna be useless up here anyway, don't worry about it. They get up there, and they face the Kinkaku Heiki, which are swordsmen that defy guns, claim that the sword is the only way to go, and swordsmen that have basically become weapons themselves. They call themselves weaponized swordsmen. And it reminds me a lot of the Oniwaban group, in that they have some weird powers and stuff going on. It also, of course, makes you think about Shishio's group as well. But Saito shows up and has one of the best lines I've ever seen in a shonen, which is where he gives him his name, and he gives him his Goro name, his police name. And the leader of the Kinkaku Heiki says, "Spare me your alias is a mere dog, for I have heard the true name of the wolf." Saito's response is, "If you knew that, then why ask? Are you stupid?" It's such a good retort. And then you get to see this shot of the wolf image behind Saito as his real name is given, Saito Hajime. And you see the shock on some of the Kinkaku Heiki, and you see the shock on some of the police officers' faces, and then it looks like this fight's about to start. And I really hope that it becomes a thing, because obviously Kenshin's going to wind up fighting with these guys, probably with the help of the new guys. But I really hope it's a thing where we get to meet Saito, and he's maybe critically wounded, and he's okay, but he got hurt fighting them, and it's because he tried to fight them all at once or something. And it's not going to be a situation where they find Saito and he's dead, or where he's gravely injured because he lost in a fight against one-on-one against the leader, when Saito is one of the only people to ever be able to hold Kenshin one-on-one. Like, I want it to be a situation where Saito, because Saito has to lose so they can fight these guys, but I want it to be a situation where he loses because he fought them all at once. I guess he could join them, I guess. I don't see that happening for Saito, but it's possible. So, and then Kaoru's dad is involved in all this somehow. Maybe he's the leader of the Kinkaku Heiki? I don't know. We'll see. I just really feel like he's involved with the bad guys here. I feel like that's where this plot has been leading. Why else would he lie to his daughter and not, or basically lie to his daughter and not tell her he's alive? The second half of this chapter, as my cat knocks over the food dish behind him, the second half of the chapter is dedicated to Kenshin and Kaoru preparing to leave. And you have this moment where basically Kaoru is worried that when they get there, that since Yahiko's not going with them, they're going to run into some trouble, and Kenshin's going to feel like he has to fight. And Kenshin's been getting weaker. His body got really messed up when he fought Shishio. And even before that, he fought many enemies back to back to back to back to back. And before that, before he even met Kaoru, he was the Batosai, and he was in constant fights back to back to back to back to back. And so his body's not in great shape. He's been having a rough time of it. And he's getting weaker. And she's worried that if he has to fight, something could happen to him. And so Yahiko decides to test his skill, and that's where the chapter ends off. But one interesting touch I thought was that you have this moment where all the new kids are basically like, I don't want to go to Hakodate, which means they're absolutely going to Hakodate. And I love this because instead of them being like, yeah, let's go on an adventure, they're like, no, we have stuff. I'm trying to learn to read. I'm trying to learn the sword. Like, we're busy here. What's going on? But they're obviously going to get pulled into this. Maybe they find out that Kenshin's not as strong as they thought he was, and so they all go to be able to help protect Kaoru as well. We'll find out. I expect the next couple chapters to be pretty interesting. But we will end things off this week with the lightning round, as always, starting with Lycopene, the Tomatoy Poodle. I'm gonna get that down at some point. Struggled for a long time with Province Neverland, but I got everything else down. Lycopene! It's pretty good. It's okay. It's a weird gag manga that I don't know how I feel about yet, but gag manga take a little while to get into if you're not caught up on the references, and especially these, because I don't get a lot of these references. But I did think that the idea of a lot of the references is pretty funny. If I had known the reference beforehand, I probably would have thought the joke was funnier. But, yeah, I'm even on it right now. No ups, no downs. Very even. One Piece 881 Wave Room. Great chapter. Great chapter. Great chapter. Absolutely loved it. Everything with Luffy shoving the glass into his mouth to hide the message, to make sure that nobody knew what was going on, was great. To Big Mom's kids being stupid because they're too OP and they don't realize that they should follow through on things like that. It was really 2 thumbs up. Great chapter. Dr. Stone 30, great chapter. I loved everything to do with the hallucinations with the angel, everything to do with the sulfuric acid, because this is a threat that can't be fought the way a normal threat can be fought. But it's a very dangerous one, with Senku telling his story, with Senku gonna dump all his info into Chrome in case he dies. Great. Absolutely great. We Never Learned 34, Kurisu, Asumi chapter. What else do I need to say? No, for real though, it was a really good chapter. 2 thumbs up. Really good chapter. Definitely loved it, especially the progress we got with you get starting to see things from Kurisu's side a little bit more. Best girl is best girl. Next up, Blue Exorcist 94, Beyond the Snow Part 3. 1 thumb up. Really solid chapter. I felt like it didn't go into as much detail as I wanted it to with what Faust was planning to say or with the barrier falling. But you can't really do much about what Faust was planning to say because of the gunshot. And the gunshot and the whole scenes leading up to that alone, plus the scene of Rin being angry and upset at the same time, and worried at the same time. That one panel alone, plus the chilling shot of Yukio walking up behind Faust, I felt was definitely worth a thumb up on its own. So 1 thumb up for sure. Food Wars 234, I'm going to give it 1 down. I'm not going to give it 2 down. I'm going to give it 1. I'm going to give it 1 down. This whole chapter is just Aizen, and were it not for the good Aizen faces, I probably would have given it 2 down, because it's just him gloating. And I really feel like next week that it's not going to matter for anything, because Takami's going to have been ready for it. If that's not the case, I'll retroactively change my vote, but as it is, this chapter just feels like a waste when Takami's going to surprise him next chapter anyway. And I get that you need to have that, but make it like 2 panels of him gloating. I don't know. It seemed like too much. Black Clover 128, 2 thumbs up. I love that this became a match, that we averted all the tropes of the way it could have gone. I love that Asta's losing fighting Langris, that he's not going to be able to beat him on his own. I love that Mimosa can't keep up the healing because Langris is going crazy, and that we find out for sure that this was all part of the Wizard King's plan to find the unconscious traitor. So 2 thumbs up for sure. Robot Laserbeam 28, Reunion, 1 thumb up. Really solid chapter. I loved the mention of the side characters, Shosato. I loved everything to do with the rivals meeting each other's eyes. Other than that, it feels like not a lot happened this chapter, but I really enjoyed what did happen, so 1 thumb up for sure. My Hero Academia 155, Saviors the Saved in a Hero's Place, 2 thumbs up. Great chapter, great chapter, great chapter, great chapter, great chapter. This whole arc has been really weird because the first half of the arc I was like, yeah! And in the middle of the arc I was like, eh! And then the end of this arc where we're at now, I'm like, pfft. So, great chapter. Great chapter. 2 thumbs up for sure. Also, that wasn't really any form of review. That was just me making noises and throwing my thumbs at the screen. It's fine. Promised Neverland 58, Decision. Good chapter. Really good chapter. I appreciated the stuff we find out about the Nameless Man in this chapter. It's not much, but it's a little bit. And then the weapons at the end. Okay. Yeah. Great chapter. Great chapter. And finally, Rurouni Kenshin, the Hokkaido Arc 2, Melee at Mount Hakodate. 2 thumbs up. Loved this chapter. It was short. It was to the point. It didn't skip and waste any time. Very nice. Next chapter is going to be even better, I think. Plus, we got to meet the Kinkaku Heiki. We got to see some Saito being awesome, taking out that cannon while they're all distracted. 2 thumbs up. Great chapter. I have been Trey. This has been the Weekly Shonen Jump Breakdown for the week of October the 10th. We are back next week with more Weekly Shonen Jump. Remember to always enjoy the full spectrum that Weekly Shonen Jump has to offer, and please let us know in the comment section below how you felt about the chapters this week. Please subscribe if you're not already, and give us a like if you want us to make more of this kind of content. Remember to always enjoy the full spectrum that Jump has to offer.